Hey there. Oh, I can't hear you muted. But I assume you said, hey, how you doing?
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Sorry.
That's all right. I'm
used to using WebEx or Discord. I could hit the Alt button and push to talk. So
what's this? Sorry, just look at this. It's a nice collection behind you.
Oh, thanks.
How many, let's see, how many would you say you had not hanging?
Oh, I have about 10 guitars and basses combined. I like to justify it by saying that they're all different, but you know.
But you know.
Well, you know, that red one, this one, I'm sorry, this one
Yeah.
right here is a baritone, and that's a regular guitar. That's a regular guitar, and that's a 12 string. And I have a couple different types of basses. So I don't know, sort of a.
Don't worry, that's what I do with PC components.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it's different enough.
Yeah. It's like, no, I'm not a collector. They're not all the same.
No.
I don't need one more. Well, maybe one more.
This is the last one.
Actually, I did order a bass a little while ago, and I'm gonna get it in a few weeks.
You have the thing stopping in his FedEx.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
At this point, I probably should start selling some.
All right. Let's let some people flow in.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, should be good. Awesome. Ava said she's running a little late. Should be fine.
I have my fan on. Do you hear it, like any air noise or anything?
I don't. Do you hear my air conditioning?
Oh. No, I don't.
No.
So, all right then, good.
Fantastic. I'm always scared about that, joining a meeting. Okay. How's everybody else doing? Good? Thumbs up. You don't have to break the silence. It's cool. Just thumbs up. Awesome. Great. So I've got questions. I'm making sure everybody's able to come in. Still waiting for 2 other panelists also. Let me get them. Oh, there she is. So that's 2. Hi, Nora.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Great. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm happy to see that you got in. All good. No technical error. So I got one more. And I'm waiting in. Let's see.
Nora, it's been like 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I've been in Santa Cruz, actually.
Never look back.
Oh.
Just kidding. Where are you at now?
Right now, usually I'm in Altadena, Pasadena,
Oh,
so
okay.
Southern California.
Oh.
Mhm.
Put it from Mark. And then we should be good. There's Evan. Trade, nice to see you. Nice to see all of you.
Hey, what's up?
Not much. We're
How's
only wait-
everybody?
Oh, good.
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 Thanks for coming, Tim. Nice to
Yeah,
meet
glad
you.
to be here. Nice to meet you.
Oh, right. It was like a reference, right? A reference from a friend. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. Don't
Yeah,
you know each other? That's always nice when LinkedIn actually works and you meet other people. Okay. I'm going to do, let's say, sorry, I had to let the cat out. I don't know if he actually left. That's fine. So I still have one more. Let me take it till, give him like 5 minutes. I'll send out an email. That should be good. Can I just do a quick, this is for my own research on it. So if you are currently in the Discord and that's how you found out about it, can you give me a thumbs up? Okay. And if you found out from Amy's department email, can you give me a clap? That way I could see the difference. Okay. Okay. I don't know how else you might have found out. Oh, I guess if you're planning the meeting, then you found out about it. Okay. I think that's everybody, just so I can cover my bases. Okay, that way I just know where everybody's coming from. And I can see that Discord is helpful. Do you guys, you can put it in chat or you could say, do you guys find it a little too much when there's an announcement in chat, I mean in Discord, or is that fine when we say at everybody, hey, there's this thing going on? Okay, good. Yeah, I feel that I don't want more emails. That's good. Okay. Okay, awesome. Just so I know not to spam anybody. Discord over email. Fair point. If I stop looking at my inbox in a day, it's like 60 and I get sad. Can't do it. Okay. Let's do some quick introductions. He'll probably join in a little late and I'll be fine to catch him if you can. So let's start with who we are. So my name is Alberto. I'm president of SPS. I'll be the moderator for today. So I'll be shooting the panelists some questions. They'll answer. It doesn't have to be super formal. Just as things go along, we'll have a conversation about who they are. You'll get to understand their own experiences. There's going to be a clear difference here. None of it is like, hey, you should definitely do this. I don't think any of us would necessarily detail our lives as the best scenario ever. But the point is to share exactly what it's been like for us, what it's been like for others who may have taken a different step or have had some variation in their career. So just so you know, if we are going to have a workshop next week, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of what to do after and the steps, but right now is really a conversation to let you know exactly what's out there and what possible futures you could choose. And I'll leave it at that. So I'll start with Timothy. Could you tell us, I mean, we know your name now that I say it, but your name, a little bit about yourself and, you know, kind of what you do now.
Sure. I'm Tim Clark. Since this is the SPS, I'm relevant to that. I graduated from UCLA in '97 with a bachelor's degree in astrophysics. So that was before dark energy was really a thing, and it was, you know, so things have changed a lot in the last 20 odd years. I currently work at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. I'm a project schedule analyst. I'm the lead schedule analyst for the Mars Sample Return Project. Interestingly enough, I had a very long digression, I guess, sort of from physics and astronomy. For the first about half of my career at JPL, I did work on physics and astronomy projects. I worked on the WISE mission, the Kepler mission, which you may be familiar with, and the mid-infrared instrument for the James Webb Space Telescope, which is launching hopefully in October. After that, I moved on to the Mars 2020 project as the lead schedule analyst. And so I worked on Mars 2020 through launch, and now I work Mars Sample Return.
Awesome. Thank you. Now I'll hand it over to Nora. Again, who you are.
Yeah, so I graduated with my physics bachelor's degree in 2013, and I had a year as I think my job title was assistant scientist, but I did like algorithmic research for a Department of Defense contracting company. So kind of did the programming route after my physics undergrad, and then I didn't particularly like that. So then took my physics bachelor's degree off to SLAC, where then I stayed for 6 years and was a system or accelerator system operator. I don't know if you guys know about SLAC, but we have this 2-mile long electron accelerator, and I was one of the operators for it for on and off for about 6 years. It was very fun. And actually, before I forget, they are hiring for system operators. So there is a link to the job in the chat now that I will continue to promote. But yeah, especially graduating seniors. Yeah, all you need is a physics bachelor's degree. Anyways, so I did that for 6 years, was in the control room, working with all these maybe PhD physicists, a whole menagerie of different folks at a national lab. And then I really liked it. So then I did end up going back to graduate school, which is my affiliation with UC Santa Cruz. Is I'm technically in graduate school here. But I've also done an industry internship in Santa Monica at an accelerator company that we build accelerator components that we then sell to national labs. So I think I have a little bit of everything. And yes, that brings me to now. Right. Enrolled in grad school full time, but that is a new development.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess I'll start off with the first question, which is, you both kind of talk about how maybe you tried a couple routes, decided that maybe I didn't like this first one. Many other people in the industry, maybe they didn't like the second, third, or fourth, but they landed somewhere. And my question to both of you is, what out of all these steps that you've taken, what has been the thing that drove you to the next one, and what has been the thing that driven you to the opportunity you have now? Tell me about that process. What was that like?
it was a slightly weird process for me. Actually, even from the time that I was a little kid, I always wanted to work for NASA and or JPL. That was, I mean, pictures of me where, 6 years old wearing, NASA baseball caps and things like that. So that was something that I was always really just as a goal that I wanted to do. Unfortunately, if you graduated from college in '97, that was just the time as Cassini was launching and JPL was laying off thousands of people. So it was extraordinarily difficult to get a job at that time at NASA or at JPL specifically. But there was one sort of thing that was kind of taking off right about that time. And if you even knew what HTML stood for, you could get a job at a tech company. So I ended up working at a web company, and that parlayed into working at another web company. I became a producer for a company that did, primarily movie websites. So I was the producer for the Spider-Man movie website, the Tobey Maguire era Sony Pictures movie. And then after a few years, for lack of a better way to put it, I got tired of making commercials. And I really wanted to work, in the thing that I originally wanted to work for. And so I did find my way into a job at JPL, not, directly in the engineering area. Technically, it's sort of in the halfway sort of project management, business management area, which is project scheduling. And so I worked at JPL for several years, left for a few years to be an executive at another web startup because friends of mine were starting, and it was very difficult to turn down the money that was offered in that particular job. And then after a few years, that company, which was sort of bootstrapped, had challenges competing with companies that had much deeper pockets with regards to marketing. So that company was not really growing, and I worked my way back to JPL again. And so that's, as you can imagine, like so many things when it comes to something like a bachelor's degree in astrophysics, which is not, it's sort of in that weird gray area I don't want to presume anyone else's experience, but to me, it's almost like a bachelor's in astrophysics is quite possibly the least useful STEM degree you can get. Because people are not interested in you as an engineer, and they won't take you seriously in the science world because you have a bachelor's. You don't have a master's or a PhD. Why, so you're kind of in this very strange gray zone, or at least I was at the time, or at least that's what it felt like. Like we said, your mileage will vary, but this was just sort of the things that I sort of ended up with. And so that's kind of how I ended up in the sort of the project / business management end of things at JPL. One of the upsides is I'm familiar with the jargon of science, and I understand the work that is being done. When somebody talks about spectroscopy, I know what that is. I know how that works. And when I work with the engineers to help plan their work and the scientists to plan their work, I can provide value on not just on how understanding how their work is performed can help us inform and make smart decisions on how to manage that work from a project management standpoint. So that's where I sort of have one foot on the business side and one foot on the technical and engineering side, so that I can interface well with both sets of team members, and hopefully that's productive.
I have a question, a follow-up question to that. Do you feel like that your sort of familiarity with the science behind all of that, do you feel like that's something that employers would look for positions like yours? Like, do you think that puts you, gives you like the leg up in the industry?
I think at some level, like if I were to seek a job specifically at something like a very kind of science and astronomy or physics oriented portion of the industry, my background is not really exceptional. But in areas that are not particularly focused on science, physics, astronomy areas, a physics degree or an astrophysics degree is kind of prestigious in some ways. It's like people see, it's like, whoa, astrophysics. It's like you must, have a lot of technical knowledge. You must be very technically capable. And right or wrong, there is a certain level of interest that is almost automatically generated when you say, oh, I have an astrophysics degree. People kind of go, well, immediately. So I don't know if it really gives you much of a leg up, but it certainly can spark a bit of interest, or at least start a conversation.
No, I saw earlier that maybe you looked like you wanted to jump in. Did you have something there? No, okay. That's
Yeah, no,
resonated.
resonated. I feel like my job was also like sometimes physicists translating, or like my job at Slack was a lot of like sitting in the control room with PhD scientists, and just having a bachelor's is required for the job because you do need to speak physicist, and physicists aren't the best communicators. So it's definitely a skill set that you have with a physics degree that it can be very valuable, translating physicist.
And how would you describe the same thing, like that journey that you had for yourself and finding the right place for you? What was that like?
I think I was mostly just guided on like what I don't like. Or like you try something and then realize like, oh, I don't like this. And then you evaluate why you don't like it and then try the next thing. So my first job, I think in undergraduate, my favorite class was computational physics. So I got a job that was doing like algorithmic research. It was pretty much a job version of my computational physics class. And I think I realized, oh, I like this in a class form where you have like a nice 10-hour project that you write up, you submit, and then it's done. But then when I was working on like 1.5-year project for 40 hours a week, I didn't like that at all. But I wouldn't have known that until I tried the job. So then it was like, okay, I don't like working by myself. So then kind of guided the next job of, okay, you want a very social job. Hence the operator job, or I found this job of the accelerator system operator at Slack, and then got that job, and that ended up being a really good fit. So did that, and then I did end up wanting maybe a little bit more career growth that wasn't outside of programming. So I did end up going back to school to get the PhD, which I'm hoping will kind of help me get into kind of a more project managerial role of these big physics projects. But there were a lot of opportunities at Slack once you were an operator, but a lot of them were in like controls or like the safety system, like stuff that I wasn't quite as interested in. But yeah, we kind of keep trying different things. I find the physics degree to be very versatile, which is nice. Like I think one of my college internships was at a bank, and like that was fine. So you can definitely do a lot with your physics degree. So
Actually, that was a question that you were mentioning earlier about why you're going back to school right now. For that next step you were looking at in the career. I did have a question for you guys, which is, sometimes when you go to a job, they'll pay for you or they'll incentivize you to go back to school for something to get you to a different position. Do you find that is something worthwhile to you? Was that ever offered to you? If it was, why did you feel, motivated to do it or not to do it? And, talking about that sort of opportunity when it does come, or if it comes to you.
do you want to go first, Timothy, or should I just keep talking?
Oh, you can go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think both my employers offered, or my first employer at SciTech, where I did algorithmic research, they offered to pay for a master's degree. So I did not do it because I didn't stay long enough, but one of my colleagues did, and I think he stayed for 5 years, and they paid for his master's. And that was definitely something I asked about at a career fair, and that was highly desirable to me. At Slack, they have another employee benefit that pays for your master's degree, or not your master's degree, but I think there's an employee benefit where they'll pay you $5,000 a year or something to reimburse for tuition costs, which is what I used for a long time, which was very helpful. I ended up being a little more unique in that I went to my head of department after I'd been at Slack for 2-3 years and made myself pretty valuable, I think. And then told him, okay, I would like I now have all this institutional knowledge at Slack. I would like to be a accelerator physicist, to my boss's boss of like, how do you propose I do this? And she was the one that actually proposed me to go to UC Santa Cruz and kind of helped formulate this unique situation where I was half staff, half graduate student. So we kind of took it a step further if she was willing to like accommodate me being on different shifts. And I think my poor first year graduate students that were in my class had all their classes on Wednesday and Friday so that I could work the other 3 days. And I ended up having to ask for a lot, but I was in a bargaining position to do it. Because I'd worked at Slack for a while, and like once you know the operator skills, it was a desirable skill set that Slack wanted to keep you around. So yeah, that ended up being a great start into getting a PhD or helping Slack help me get it, I guess. But yeah, a lot of employers offer like to help pay for your master's. So I would definitely ask when you go to career fairs, because it can be a really great opportunity.
Are you still with Slack now?
No. So I feel like my
That's
story did not quite have the like lovely happy ending. My main champion ended up she left to go to Fermilab, and her predecessor it was not his passion project to help formulate this this new program, the startup program between Slack and UC Santa Cruz. So it was becoming a bureaucratic nightmare. So I ended up leaving, and now I'm just a graduate student, but I'm still like informally leveraging all of my Slack connections. It's just not the formal program that me and my department head initially had agreed upon because she left. But yes.
Yeah, more Tim. Sorry.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the JPL actually has a pretty generous educational reimbursement. It's sort of limited in specific ways. So one of the things you might want to talk about if you're talking to a prospective employer about things like employment reimbursement is, do they have rules and limitations on the types of degrees that they'll reimburse? Like, for example, because of my HR classification, JPL wouldn't reimburse me for science graduate school. They would reimburse me for project management. They would reimburse me for an MBA, but they wouldn't reimburse me for a master's in physics or other graduate school related to physics or astronomy. That's sort of a bureaucratic thing, and it's related to my job classification. So that may be relevant to some of you as you're talking to potential employers. You may want to find out what the rules and limitations are. But within that, it's, JPL's reimbursement is generous. I don't know exactly what it is. But it is considerable. You can probably go to school very inexpensively, at least relatively speaking. And one cool thing is if you have children that are accepted to Caltech, their tuition is free. So
Wow.
Staff of Caltech, their children as undergrads are free. Grad school isn't, but that's a different story.
Okay. The next question, I guess, to kind of go on this is, so thinking back, pulling back time a little bit to that moment where, around where you're going to graduate with your degree in undergraduate. Did you feel, or do you remember there being like a hard push to say, all right, cool, you're done with your bachelor's degree. Great, fantastic. The logical next step, implying that the logical next step is always to do grad school. Did you ever feel that push, in the academic setting or outside of that? Sometimes students will say, my family some of them think it's a given. You know, we hear these stories from students all the time. And I just kind of want to think about whether that happened to you. If it didn't, great. But if it did, I'd love to hear about it.
In my experience, it was very much the opposite. When I look back, and again, this may be a representation of the difference between the culture in the 90s and the culture now, where in some ways a bachelor's degree is, you know, the bare minimum floor. And to distinguish yourself, you need a graduate degree of some sort. In the mid 90s, it was a bit different. For, you know, looking back, you know, I have to admit that for me, the right advice would have been keep your momentum, go straight to grad school. But the advice given to me was go work for a while and decide if grad school is right for you. Your GPA is only about 3.1. It's not going to get you to these top schools, you know, unless you have a super top GRE, you're not really going to, you know, make it in grad school, et cetera, et cetera. I was given some, like I said, in retrospect, I think probably poor advice as applies to me. If I had a chance to send myself in 1997 an email with a single sentence, the sentence would have been, go straight to grad school. But that's, you know, that may not apply to other people, but that would have been, I think, the right thing for me at the time.
Can I ask why? You know, the shift, or why you think that would have been a good piece of advice for yourself back in 90?
Well, based on what I know of my own personal habits, it is easier to maintain momentum in specific areas. By the time I left school, I worked for a couple of years, and I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'll go back to grad school. And then I'm like, well, look at all the things I forgot. It's like, man, I was really glad that I, you know, barely passed quantum, you know, and it's like, so, you know, it's like, and I thought, well, maybe I'm not really, you know, cut out for it. Maybe I'm not smart enough for it. And then it's been 2 years or 3 years and I've forgotten everything. And now I'm going to be so far behind the curve. And even at that time, I further got discouragement. And also for, you know, as it turns out, you know, I was working in sort of lucrative industries at the time. And so it was hard to walk away from the income that I had. So it was sort of two things worked against me. One was I probably would have been better off sticking with my momentum that I had and gone straight to school. The other thing is being out of school for a couple of years, I kind of got the taste of the disposable income life and didn't really want to give that up. So
a fair motivator.
Yeah. So you know, like you said sort of at the beginning, you know, this doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, and for good or ill, I don't know, but when I went to school, the push from almost all corners were, unless you want to go get a PhD and become a researcher, don't go to graduate school, just get a job. And so, I mean, that was what my family, you know, gave me and everything. And I was actually the first person in my family to go to college. So just graduating from college, as far as they were concerned, was like, well, now you're done. You know, it's like grad school just didn't even really sort of enter into my family dynamic as a concept. You know, being the first person, like I said, in my entire family, you know, to have even gone to college. So it was all those different pieces sort of came together and moved me off of the academic path, basically.
I mean, I guess, sorry.
Oh, you can go.
No, I was gonna go ahead and ask Nora, because I was interested in, now that we have a literal special case of
Yeah, I wanted to
times.
ask Nora also, because I've also heard what Timothy said about, you know, well, you don't need a PhD unless you want to stay in academia, unless you want to just do research, you know, something like that. And I'm wondering if that's actually the case. Nora was saying earlier that she felt like she would have a lot more opportunities if she went back to grad school. And yeah, so I just want to hear if you think that that's true.
Wait, you're going to still talk to Timothy.
Oh no, you.
Oh, no, I was talking to you.
Okay. I don't know. I've seen a lot of my operator colleagues go on to be very successful without with only their bachelor's, and I almost view that as my own, like, not personal limitations, but like I am not the most assertive person, so I feel like I needed the like degree to give me the confidence to be like, no, I belong in this room. But like my other colleagues do not have this problem, or like not everyone needs this validation that I feel like I need. So one of the, area physicists at Slack, she's an old operator. She has a bachelor's degree. There's an operator legend that never got his PhD and was one of the like project leads on, a $1 billion project at Slack. Like he never got his PhD. So I do think with the operator job, or any sort of this like start out as this technical support, like is a really valid way to do kind of an on the job backdoor PhD. So like there are ways, but when I talked a lot with my colleague who's an area physicist at Slack and has a bachelor's, and she's on level with all the other like physicists at Slack. Like she's well respected, she's good at her job, but she has commented of like, if I wanted to go to another facility, that would be a problem because she doesn't have her degree, which is fine. She's built her life at Slack. She doesn't want to leave. And she's, a highly regarded physicist at Slack, but it would be harder to go to a different lab if she wanted to. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of backdoor ways to get into research, or just like, I really liked the accelerator operator job because you were really contributing to the field of science without maybe leading your own study. But yeah, there's a lot of other ways to to contribute, I guess. I don't know, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what would you say is the main reason that you did decide to go back to school?
Oh, I don't know. I think I didn't want the like I did want to be able to move around more. And I guess I definitely wanted the flexibility that went with the PhD of like, I don't want to be tied to Slack to like at the rate I was going, I would have been able to probably have the career I wanted, but it would have had to be like at Slack only. And I didn't want to be limited like that. So I think I just wanted the flexibility. Yeah, I mean, I also wanted the like apprenticeship that kind of goes along, or my idea of what grad school is supposed to be is you have your professor mentor you and teach you how to be a physicist. And I think I wanted that that structure. So that was my attempt to try and get this. But.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, the next question I got here is, this is a little mixed and hard, it's sometimes people think a job is a job, but do you find that special portion of the job you do particularly fulfilling, and why you feel that, this move in this industry or the industry you've worked in was a good one that you wanted to be a part of?
I guess I'll start. Yeah, I mean, I'm not very good if I don't like my job, so that's been highly paramount that I like what I'm doing. And yeah, for me, the national lab environment really clicked. Of you're working with this whole like kind of menagerie of different types of people. You get to work with the physicists, which I find to be very endearing humans, but you also get to work with the engineers, the facilities, like you work with a little bit with everyone at a national lab. And I find that to be really awesome. The operator job is also very unique in that you work in crews. So that was really important to me, in that you have this really intense like team, like there's 3 or 4 of you on shift at a time, and it's your responsibility to run this 2-mile long accelerator. Like that's like it's fun, right? And like you get this really intense camaraderie, which is important for me. We also do shift work, so you learn a lot about someone when like at 3 a.m. in the morning, which is very binding, which I mean, I feel like we get a little bit of this in our physics undergrad, of like you go through these what terrible experiences or terrible problem sets and really bond together. I found this appealing that I got this in my job with owl shifts or like with these weird work setups. So yeah, for me, it's really important to have a really social, like have people hold you accountable, have this really intense team atmosphere. But it does maybe lend to poor work-life balance because then your work friends are kind of your real or not your they're your real friends.
They blend.
Your only friends.
Yeah. So I know one of my coworkers, like 2 years in, was like, oh my gosh, like we have no friends outside of work. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have no friends outside of work. Like how great, like how so I mean, it depends on what you like. Yeah. I don't actually remember the original question. So I
No,
think I've
that's
gone off.
okay. That was a great, no,
No,
the
you
story
definitely answered
was
it.
great.
It was what did you love about your job, or yeah.
And we could see it. So it's
Yeah, definitely.
good. Tim, what's how about you?
It's very similar in a lot of ways. I mean, working at JPL, it's literally, I don't exactly do the job I had pictured when I was a little kid, but I am almost exactly at the place I had pictured when I was a little kid. I look back and I'm like, of all the jobs that I've had in my life, there is no question that this is the most fulfilling. The Kepler mission was in a lot of trouble and it was about to be canceled. There was a cancellation review for the Kepler mission. And so there was an entire team turnover, and I was on the new team to sort of set it back on track. And the mission launched and the mission succeeded and found thousands of planets around other stars. And I have a part of that, maybe a very small part, but I have a part of that achievement. Whatever the James Webb Telescope finds, I'll have a little piece of that will be mine. Same goes for Mars 2020, the Perseverance rover, the Ingenuity helicopter. I was the lead scheduler for the entire project. So, I had a team of schedulers working with me, and we worked with the engineers to build and manage their plans. So I had a little bit of a bigger piece, of Mars 2020 and Ingenuity. And now I work on Mars Sample Return, which is going to launch later this decade. And I'll have a little piece of that too. So I really derive an incredible amount of personal fulfillment from that sense of participating in, my name's never going to be in any history book, but 1,000 years from now, people will have heard of, maybe just as footnotes in books, but there will be notes about the Kepler mission, the first mission to find, to find thousands of planets, the Mars Sample Return, so there's an incredible amount of personal fulfillment I get out of that. So I sound a little giddy, I guess, but I mean, that's, when I actually sit down and sort of just like itemize that out, I'm like, Kepler mission, James Webb Space Telescope, Perseverance, it's like, wow, I helped in just a little bit of a way to in the success of these projects. So yeah, it's really cool.
Turning into commercial.
Awesome. What did you say?
Yeah, this is like turning into commercial for like why you should participate in big science.
PSA.
Very fun to have a small kind of role.
So I have a question. I can't remember, Nora, if you said that that you had done something similar, but Tim, you said that when you left school, you started working like in like startups or something more to do with computers. And were you doing that as well, Nora, working with computers when you graduated?
Yeah, technically
Was
a tech
that,
startup.
did you feel like that was fulfilling when you were doing that as well? Did it have like, no?
I like the Bob was a really poor fit for me. So, and I don't think that's uncommon. Like, I think it's not uncommon to not like your first job. Because you don't know, like you only know school, right? So I picked that job based on like, well, this is the course I know that I like. And it turned out like, oh, I hate this job. But it was great. I failed at it and I learned a lot about myself. And I realized what was really important for the next job. And I think it was a cool, impactful projects, but it just the work was boring. Like I was at my desk for like 40 hours a week. Right? It wasn't a
Yeah,
good
we
fit
can all
for me.
relate to that.
That's everybody.
I feel you.
Ava, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So like it kind of sounds to me like especially non-academic jobs that you kind of switch around jobs a lot, I guess, based off of like when it's time to leave a certain company or like time to pursue something else. And I know it's not true for everyone, like a lot of people stay, but like how do you manage moving around that much? Because I know both of you said you did. Like, do you feel like you're itching to get out? Like, oh, I need to go on the next step. Like, how do you feel comfortable like that? Or do you?
You're asking me at a poor time because I just moved like 4 years. So right now I'm like, we're moving again. I'm never changing jobs. Like,
That's okay. I feel like that would be my reaction.
yeah. I don't know. I've had a lot of like fun seeing where my job takes me in my crazy 20s, which also I feel like is a plus for like don't go to grad school. Is like I definitely did get my crazy 20s and like went all over the place, which was awesome. But I don't know, like I don't know. You just kind of you use your happiness as a guide of like, well, I want to try that. And I know like at GPL and at Slack, like you do have people that stay for like 40 years, which and they're like have, wealth of institutional knowledge, but I don't know. You try new things. I don't know. That was a really bad answer. maybe
Okay. No, that's great.
Yes,
Yeah,
so somebody in chat is echoing that, and she wanted to know how much did you have to move to get the job you wanted? Do you feel like that that proximity was a big factor in your job search?
Sorry, Tim. Sorry. I just want to give you an opportunity. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no,
it's part of the same question, so go ahead and.
sure. Yeah, in my first couple of years, my first few years out of school, moving from one job to another, like the transition from school to kind of not really being employed for about a year after school was sort of uh, a real kind of shock to my system. Like all of a sudden, one thing had ceased to lead to another, and I had to figure something out. I got my first jobs, through friends of mine at a couple of internet companies is the first job I got, and then the second job I got was also in that. I started out doing quality assurance and basic sort of web development at the first job, and then I became a project manager in my second job, a producer in my second job, and that was just sort of felt like an evolution. Like I was sort of getting tired of the work at the first place, and then I worked at the second company. But one of the things that I learned in my 20s is that companies that I hesitate to say it in such clear terms, but in my personal experience, there is no such thing as a bank of goodwill. You'll work hard and do lots of useful stuff, and you'll work for several years or I once worked a 40-hour day, I once worked a 100-hour week to get things done. And, the reward was, oh, well, that's nice. What's next? I mean, you don't, at least the places that I worked, you didn't build up a real sense of goodwill or loyalty, or I never felt like my employers cared much about me except what I could do for them and making them, putting more money into their pockets, basically. Or if it wasn't directly money, it was accruing reputation to their company by making good products. So by the time it was about 5 years after I'd graduated from college, I was getting really cynical about that industry, and I decided it was a time for me to change. And that's when I really, tried to knock on every possible door and apply for every job at JPL that I was qualified for. And after, 3 applications, I got an interview, and that's where I ended up, doing what I'm doing.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you before. No, go ahead.
Me?
Yeah. Ava,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
Are both of you from California?
Yes, Northern California native.
I grew up here in Southern California. So actually I grew up in Downey. I went to UCLA. I worked in Orange County and then on the West Side, and now I work at JPL. So I've, aside from vacations, I've never been, more than, 50 miles from where I was born, I guess, for extended periods of time.
Yeah, I guess we're lucky. There's a lot of industry here and a lot of science that takes place up and down California. So people don't have to go too far if they don't want to.
Did you have more, Nora, for that last question about so specifically, right, Ava, it was about location, how big of a factor that was for somebody?
No, I mean, it's maybe starting to become a factor for me now of making sure that my job ends up in a specific location. But in my 20s, it didn't bother me. I did, so my first job was in New Jersey, and then moved out to Slack. I went to Japan for a year, went to Germany for a couple months. It didn't matter. But now I'm starting to get more attached, and where I don't want to live a year in one place. But that is a new development. So yeah.
How about you, Tim?
Yeah, aside from moving around just different parts of LA County, I haven't moved a whole lot. So working, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll just say, so most of the jobs, except for specifically JPL, which was one of, kind of my big dream as, when I was young, all the jobs I've ever had have generally just been keep eye out for opportunities. And then when they come up, it's like, oh, see if I can get a hold of this, or see if I can talk to this person. And they've generally been close enough that I haven't had to move far. I moved from, sort of South LA County to the West Side when I switched jobs, but it was just, it wasn't hundreds of miles. It was, 35, 40 miles.
And I was gonna say, is that so it wasn't a thing of I'm trying to figure out, it was more an opportunistic thing of staying here rather than I want to stay in this specific location for a specific reason.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, we got 10-ish minutes. I'll ask this last one, which is that I guess, Tim, you had a bit of a start in this, but if you did have the opportunity to give yourself that kind of conversation earlier, let's say mid-senior year, what would you have wanted to impart some knowledge upon them? And what would you say? Again, this is for yourself, so whatever you know best about you, what is something that you would talk about for, career or school or otherwise?
Yeah, knowing, speaking to myself, I would have said, don't lose your momentum. as Nora's experience is entirely different from mine. She went and worked, several years, and now she's gone back to grad school. I went and worked for several years, and I found rather than finding my path coming back towards and going to grad school, it just kept getting further and further and further away. It was not converging. It was a divergent, set of circumstances. So at the time, I would have said, don't listen to so and so and so and so, and go to grad school.
Okay.
And somebody also asked in chat what it was like for you, Nora, taking a long break from school and then going back.
So, it was manageable. Like, it definitely was really rusty. But it actually is kind of nice that at least at Santa Cruz, they make you take your first round of qualification exams before you start. So I was in the control room during a quiet shift the months before I started, did do some problem sets so I could pass one or two of my qualification exams. So that was a nice kind of kick in the butt to make sure I didn't come in cold, which would have been my natural instincts, just to show up and see how I did. So that actually was really helpful for me. But I don't know, it comes back. It's like riding a bike. You fall down and then you remember how to ride.
A hell of a bike. Just no, sorry. That other part for some advice that you would have imparted.
Oh, see, I'm trying to decide, I'm still not sure going to grad school will be a net positive for me. I'm still, I don't know. So I'm really glad I did not go straight into grad school. It actually kind of is my pet peeve of people going to graduate school without a very clear objective of why you're going to graduate school. And I think a lot of people just go because you don't you have to apply, but it is kind of academia is all you know. So you just kind of continue with what you know. And it should not be the default. But I don't know. I'm still deciding if grad school is a good idea for me. So I feel like I can't give advice without, yeah.
Fair enough.
I feel like it's something that is very personal, and it's going to be different for every person. And I think, but what you said, Nora, is super important. People really do need to think it's a huge commitment. It's not something that is permanent. You can always break it, but it's such a big deal and it's so much work. And it is really important to know what your goal is, especially I'm a much older student than most people here. And, especially in your early 20s, mid 20s, it's really important to know that know what you want to do, because you're investing a lot of time and you're going to be really underpaid and really overworked for many, many years, so yeah.
Yeah, it was helpful going into grad school with a very clear mission statement of why you were doing it. And I would not recommend it if you don't have that very clear mission statement.
Okay, so 5 minutes. I did want to see if anybody had any questions from the audience. I know we got some in chat, but if you've been thinking about anything throughout this conversation, would love to hear it. Besides that, I'm not just saying thank you guys for actually speaking with us on all this. It's been a really good conversation, I think. And I think that looks like students got a good amount of information. Would Tim and Nora be all right with being reached out through email? How do you feel about email, Tim?
Email's okay. I do prefer more spontaneous, communication, as you guys were talking about earlier, like Discord, greater than email. But yeah, feel free to contact me via email. I may join.
I do give my plug for any seniors to they are hiring a ton of accelerator system operators at Slack right now, and the only requirement is that you need I think it's a technical bachelor's degree. You just have to have some physics in your degree. Yes. And I highly recommend it for anyone that likes working in teams, any social physicists out there. This is an excellent job. It does require shift work. But if you are interested, definitely email me. I'll give you a ton more information. And I mean, I also still know my old supervisors, so just let me know, network with me.
That's
And
awesome. Thank you both so much for being like, you know, assets to us, because as somebody said earlier too in chat, like, you know, we don't know what's out there, especially for, you know, all we know is what we're getting from our professors who are amazing, but they obviously went the grad school route, you know, and we know what
Yeah.
their discussions are. And so it's really, you know, we don't have a whole lot of exposure to things outside of academia. So it's really been so good to talk to you guys and find out some more, and yeah, being available to us is just wonderful. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Would you guys want to put your email in the chat, or we could also just give it to them later if you want? Whichever
I'll-
one works for you.
email
Okay.
it out.
Yeah, you could forward it on.
I got you. Don't
The
worry.
Zoom app on my iPad is always so weird about opening the chats and stuff. I
That's
probably should have
okay.
connected on my PC.
I have it. I'll
That's
put it
all
in the chat.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I'll put mine in.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you. I can't say enough. Appreciate both of you and your voices. It's been really good and really nice talking to you. With that, I think. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, it's great talking to you guys too.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, I think we'll just conclude it. 4 minutes early is fine.
I can't actually find it right now. So do you want to just?
Yeah, I'll
You
put it
wanna-
on the Discord also, so it'll be
Oh, okay,
there.
cool. Put it on
Yeah, so don't worry
Oh.
about it.
Yeah, also, yeah, thank you very much. That was great. And I'll be hosting another panel tomorrow for
Oh, yes.
academic paths. Yeah, so more things too besides just grad school, like there are other options. And yeah, that'll be great. It'll help you decide whether that's something you actually want to pursue and the reasons behind it. So
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's tomorrow,
at 3
Three
o'clock.
3 to 4
Yeah.
p.m.
And it's a
that
different
is
link
already
too.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be on the Discord and then on the email as well. So whichever way you like.
So yeah, if
right.
you're interested, I'll see you there then.
Okay.
There we
Thank you
go.
guys. Thank you everybody.
Thanks so much for
you.
coming. See you guys.
See you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I don't think Suli. Are you still there, Suli? Or are
Stop
you just
recording.
watching? No, you stop recording. Okay.